Welcome to the Moral Courage Podcast, lessons from the study of Rabbi Harold M. Schulweis of blessed memory, a podcast addressing today's trends and headlines through interviews and conversations with Jewish leaders, inspired by the works of Rabbi Harold M. Schulweis that make Jewish wisdom more accessible, inclusive, and relevant to today's complicated world. Our guests share their Jewish journeys and discuss how Rabbi Schulweis's wisdom provides inspiration and guidance to us today. Hosted by Rabbi Ari Averbach, Senior Rabbi at Temple Etz Chaim in Thousand Oaks, California, and board member of the Harold M. Schulweis Institute, an affiliate of Valley Beth Shalom in Encino, California.
Welcome to the Moral Courage Podcast, where we look at the life and legacy, the theology of our dear Rabbi Harold Schulweis. This is Ari Averbach, and I am lucky enough to get to host this podcast. And today we'll be talking to Cantor Jackie Rafii at Valley Beth Shalom, and she discusses how she puts his theology to music, how she takes his ideas, especially of bringing God into the world, and does it through community, through education. And if you listen closely, you get to hear one of the poems that he wrote that she set to music and brought into a service, which is just amazing. I'm Ari Averbach, and I get to be the host of this podcast. You get to hear my conversation with Cantor Jackie Rafii. Cantor Jackie Rafii, it is so nice to see you and get to talk to you today.
So nice to talk to you, Rabbi Averbach.
Yeah, this is so fun. So I'm a big fan. I think the first time I really talked to you was I had a question for you about something, whatever it was, but it was also we were singing your Osei Shalom at our synagogue for every one of our services. And so talking to you was talking to a celebrity.
Oh my God.
And it's been great then getting to see your work and how many people our synagogue shares with you and how many people I know over at Valley Beth Shalom from my entire life. And everybody, if I can say, sings your praises, if that's not too weird a thing to say to a cantor.
Oh, that is that's so kind. Thank you so much. It's really mutual. And truly so honored to be here. So nice to talk to you and to get to be part of this amazing podcast.
Yeah. So I want to jump into the incredible piece that you wrote, which I got to hear. How did this happen? What's the genesis of this piece? So
Schulweis obviously was a prolific speaker and writer. And I had always heard about his poetry. And when I first got to VBS, I'm holding up, our listeners can't see, but I'm holding up Rabbi Harold M. Schulweis Passages in Poetry with Music by Aminadav Aloni. Mm-hmm. And this is a wonderful book that Marcy Rainey loaned me, who's active in HMSI. And basically it has selected pieces of poetry that Rabbi Schulweis wrote on one side. And on the other side, there's notated music that Ami Aloni, who was the music director here for many years, and who also has a great legacy of music here, he set those pieces to music. So that was kind of the first thing I heard, even predating coming to VBS. I learned about Ami Aloni's music in cantorial school. So coming and seeing that, wow, there was this synergy between the legendary Rabbi Schulweis and this music director and composer, Ami Aloni. How wonderful. And then once I started here, we helped revive the VBS adult choir, which is now the VBS community choir under Dr. Noreen Green. And also they had a lot of experience singing Ami's pieces, in particular, Black into White, which is Rabbi Schulweis's Havdalah interpretive poem that Ami Aloni set to music, and we sang that for Slichot. So I was exposed to all of this incredible collaboration between the two. And as we were celebrating this year, as we were talking about planning on December 20th, Ami Aloni's 25th yard site and Rabbi Schulweis's 10th yard site, and the commemoration of that, which we do every year, Rabbi Schulweis's yard site, we do a commemoration on a Friday night in December. And as we were talking about that, we were thinking, let's do some of these pieces. Let's present some of this music that is Rabbi Schulweis's poetry set to music and his writings set to music. And we came up, with Ami Aloni's Or Ha'am. This was Dr. Noreen Green's idea. Beautiful oratorio. And she brought the Los Angeles Jewish Symphony here for that. Oh, wow. And so we were, incredible. 30-piece orchestra. So, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do Russell Steinberg, who wrote a classical piece of music based on one of Schulweis's writings. And we were like, what else should we do? And then I had this grand idea, like maybe I'll write something. There hasn't been nobody since Ami Aloni and Russell Steinberg that I know of has set any of the pieces to music. None of the other, a woman has set his pieces to music. And I feel now, responsible, carrying on the legacy of the reins of the cantorate here at VBS that I've inherited from such greats before me. I felt like this is a great opportunity to write something. So I embarked on a journey of researching his poetry, and I pored over his poems on the HMSI website. This is probably a longer story than you asked for.
No, this is like, I've never written a piece of music, and I've read so much of his poetry, and I read it and I go, I can share this from the Bima or something, but I never think of how do we put this to music? So for me, this is incredible.
Well, I love setting text to music because prior to my cantorial days, I wrote pop music, like as a hobby. Yeah. And I always had you can go on YouTube. I probably shouldn't say this because now you're going to go on YouTube and hear all my pops and my like angsty pop songs from my 20s. But I always had trouble with lyrics, and like melody seems to flow to me a lot more easily. So, which is why I've really found as a composer of Jewish music, that's really my niche, and that's really where I thrive, because we have all these beautiful texts. So now, like, to have all of this prolific writing that, in Rabbi Schulweis's brilliance that he left behind for us, it was so inspiring to read through his poetry. And I will say, a lot of his poetry is prose. It doesn't rhyme. It's long, it's esoteric, and very, very deep and profound. So I was looking for a piece that was lyrical, and I came across this poem that I set to music, that was based on Rabbi Schulweis's interpretation. As soon as you read it, you can see that it is based on Adonai Sefatai Tiftach.
Yeah, the line we say before the Amidah to kind of get us in the mind space.
Exactly. And the poem is, there are prayers that no one can write for me, tears that no one can shed for me, judgments that no one can render for me. And then it says, in the silent Amidah, we confront that which is hidden from ourselves. And it goes on. It's about 8 lines of a poem. And I said, wow, what an interpretation of Adonai Sfatei Tivtach. Wow. And I sat at the piano and I had the poem printed in big font in front of me, and I just started playing. Something like within 5 minutes, I had a melody that had come to me based on these words. And then I added the Hebrew, and then I added kind of a harmony line. And over a couple of days, I wrote this piece. And knowing that a 30-piece orchestra would be performing it, I mean, what a blessing and what an opportunity. We have an associate music director here, my colleague Daniel Reisman, who's an arranger in his own right, and he arranged it for orchestra and for SATB choir, using my some of the harmonies that I had, and some of the ideas I had for like how it'll start and how it'll end, and created this piece that was debuted on December 20th at that commemoration. So it was really a meaningful process. I felt like I was having a conversation with Rabbi Schulweis as I was writing it.
Right. I mean, truly. Were there other poems that were like, that you also printed out big and you sat at the piano and you plunked and you go, this one doesn't work? Or did this one just really, you go, this is all the things I'm looking for?
There were other poems. There were a few poems I remember about God. And there were other poems that struck me for sure. That for sure struck me. But none that had this light bulb moment that I said, oh, wait a minute, this is like a piece of music waiting to be written.
Right.
The other ones they spoke to me, but not necessarily musically. This is the only one I printed.
Was there one line in the poem that you go, I need to focus on this. This needs to be the high note, or this needs to be the centerpiece? That's
a great question. The line that always stuck with me is, well, there are actually two. Discover the muted inner voice, and in the silent Amidah, which that was the only line that I reinterpreted. Instead of saying in the silent Amidah, I just said in the silence. We confront that which we hide from ourselves.
Wow.
So there's a muted inner voice, and there's things that we hide from ourselves. It really spoke to me about like that which is hidden within us comes out in the silence when there's nothing, when there's no noise. That's within us, and I feel like that ties to. I'm sure we'll get to this later, but Rabbi Schulweis's predicate theology as well, his understanding of our partnership with God and the ways that we are godly. So how does that come out when you have this opportunity for silence?
Yeah. I think about how he looked at prayer when I'm praying, and I try to think, how do I tell my community? How do I tell my students? I'm teaching a class on prayer. I teach high school students. How do you get them to understand what prayer is, what you can do with this moment of silence? Most people feel awkward in that silence. It's so strange to stand there in a sanctuary. And so they do it as quickly as possible. And they do the lines that they kind of know. And when they see other people sit down, then they just sit down.
Yeah.
To remind them what the silence can be.
Yeah.
It's such a strong piece. I try to teach that, and it's just so different than this song comes in. And you repeat that line, and it's just, hopefully that inspires people. The other day we were talking, and you said that a composer can take a text and breathe life into it, giving it new dimension. So here's a poem that he wrote however many decades ago, and now you've made it something somehow more accessible, which is an incredible gift. You performed it in a concert. Have you found a way to share it on the Bima during a service? Is there a way to truncate it so that it's somehow alluded to, or is it really a concert piece and kind of that's where it lives?
Oh, it's such a great question. Yeah, there's a way to do it. There is indeed a way to sing just the Hebrew part of it. Let's say maybe one Hebrew line and the Hebrew line is actually just one line, and then maybe take one line of English translation. There is a way to do that. It's such an interesting question you ask. It's not the tradition of our community to say anything before silent. I mean to say anything before Amidah. I'm thinking about like a Shabbat morning service or a weekday minyan in the morning where you say the Amidah aloud. And even in the evening prayer services on a Friday night service, let's say, it hasn't been our tradition to sing that line. But now that you say it, I mean, I think on an upcoming Friday night service, it would be interesting. That what a way to kind of carry on his legacy within our prayer service specifically. Thank you for the idea.
Yeah. I think about, like, sorry for this weird analogy, but like at a fashion show, the designer has this crazy piece and you see it walk down the runway and you go, who would ever wear that? That's over the top. And then it shows up in stores as a muted version of it. All of the elements are there, but somehow it's something you could actually wear out. And so here's the concert piece version, which is amazing. You go, well, we can actually just do the two lines of it. So
great analogy. Actually, that's a great analogy. And there's always a fine line I think a cantor has to play between, how do you make a piece accessible in a service so people can participate and not make it like a concert all the way through.
Right. I used to work with a cantor who hated being a jukebox. People want the same melodies. They want to know it's the same. They want to know that familiarity. And so it just he goes, you could put a quarter in me and I'll just do the entire service. And I don't want that. I want to bring in new melodies and new ideas. And then there you get to the issue of halacha, of Jewish law, which says that, for example, in the morning Amidah, there should be no break between the prayer before the Amidah and the beginning of the Amidah. Yet there's these usually small 6 words, Adonai sfatai tivtachu fi yadi tilatecha. O Lord, open my lips so that my mouth can sing your praise. That we do silently, and yet there are melodies to it.
Yeah.
Which are glorious, and people to ask, why don't we sing more of that? And to try to explain the halacha of we're not supposed to talk in that moment, and at the same time, it would make you feel spiritual and add so much to your prayer to actually hear something there. Remind you what you're praying for.
100%.
I mean, so do you and your co-clergy have that pull? You ever sit and go like, can we add this piece? I know halachically you can't, but like, I don't know. For us, it's like, how do you navigate that?
How do you navigate that? Yeah, or like, isn't there also a halacha that the person who recites Chatzi Kaddish and Shacharit before Baruch Hu must also recite Baruch Hu? But like sometimes you want the Chatzi Kaddish to be, the cantor knows Chatzi Kaddish and the kid who is having a bar mitzvah knows Baruch Hu, and you want to have them chant Baruch Hu. Like, so yeah, you gotta juggle all those things.
Well, I mean, for so much of us in the conservative movement, maybe in the non-Orthodox world, we're trying to make it accessible and also trying to understand where did the halacha come from. And if you go, this was just tradition in one town that got written in a book, which got turned into the law. And so do we have room in there to change that, especially and now there's law as to which melody you can use. You wouldn't do Yitgadal ve'Yitkadash for Chatzi Kaddish, except for 2 times during the week, except that's what the bar mitzvah kid knows. Get them up there practicing to do it also when the spot it's not supposed to be is a possibility.
I'm impressed by your Nusach knowledge, Rabbi Averbach. Very nice. That's impressive.
Oh, Cantor. I mean, when I went to rabbinical school, Rabbi Schulweis is the one who convinced me to go to rabbinical school. And when I went, I knew nothing. Like he should have said, why don't you take the next 3 years to learn Judaism? And somehow my mind opened up. And so I was able to learn it. Ziegler is amazing, the school, and I had amazing colleagues and teachers. And so I'm really proud of the fact that I went into rabbinical school knowing so little. I knew more about theology than I knew about nusach, prayer structure, things like that. And that by the time I graduated, I was pretty fluent in it. Not that I have a voice like yours, but I can do some of it.
That's great.
And so I'm like, if I can ever lead a service, I like jump at the opportunity, not because I want people to hear my voice, but because I'm proud of the fact that I learned some of these things. It's
wonderful. Yeah, and it's not easy. That's what kol hakavod. It's not easy.
So I guess on that, now that I talked about myself in this way, what's your path from being a YouTube emo pop singer to being a cantor? Like, like that's a unique one, and it's an incredible position. And you've had some great colleagues. I know so many people you've worked with. How did this life find you?
Well, on paper, I was never a YouTube emo pop star. Although there was once this wiki, I'll tell you, like, it was hilarious. There was this wiki, not Wikipedia, but there used to be this website that was like about people called Wikimedia or Wiki something. And I had somebody had created a page for me and they said, Jacqueline Rafii is a singer-songwriter with a cult following. And I was like, oh my God, I have a cult following. This is like when I was in law school, when I was like, in my 20s. Anyway, that never went anywhere, but it was always truly just a hobby, like a passion, a love, really like what I was doing with my time. After I went to UCLA undergrad I was in law school and I was studying for the bar and I was practicing law, and I practiced entertainment law for about 3.5 years. I worked at a wonderful firm, but my heart was muted. Discover the muted inner voice. The song was muted, honestly. And while I was growing up, I grew up at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And Cantor Don Gurney, who was the cantor when I was growing up, he was actually the first cantor there. He took a lot of young people under his wing and who were interested in music and really like inspired a lot of the next generation to get involved in Jewish music. And after my bat mitzvah, he's like, you got to join the youth choir. You got to consider becoming a cantor. And I was like, what's a cantor? I'm first generation American. My parents are from Iran. As far as my ancestry goes back, since the Babylonian exile, like we've been in Persia, and so there wasn't really a precedent for women being clergy or cantors at all whatsoever. And but my parents making this choice to enroll us at a Reform Ashkenazic Hebrew school, Wilshire Boulevard Temple, which was a really unique and progressive choice on their part. Credit to them. My mom wanted us to be somewhere where I could do everything my brother could do. So she wanted an egalitarian synagogue. She loved the Israeli principal of the Hebrew school. Anat Ben Yishai of blessed memory. She passed away recently, sadly. So she loved her. She thought she was like tough and strong and would teach us like beautiful Jewish values. And we would commute from Westwood to basically Hancock Park. When it was just when it was just the Koreatown building and not the other campuses. But so they made that choice. And because of that, I was exposed to Ashkenazic, American, beautiful Jewish music. And Don Gurney, really is a fantastic musician, and he brought a lot of beautiful pieces. So I developed this interest, but I had no idea what to do with it. I didn't really know what being a cantor entailed. And I always had in my head that, I'm just going to go to law school and I'm going to have like I'm going to work hard, go to law school, have a career. I didn't know what being a cantor was. So, but I got more and more involved. I started leading services at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. I became a cantorial soloist. When I went to, as soon as I turned 18, I started getting paid as a cantorial soloist. Wow. And then I started to move to different, to kind of sub for cantors at different synagogues. And I loved it so much, but I just couldn't take that leap. I didn't have the courage to take that leap of committing to life as a clergy person. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't have anyone in my family or circle. And, I'd heard that, okay, it's 5 years of graduate school and it potentially in New York, again, like first generation, Persian American Jewish girl, like, I'm not going to leave home, go away for 5 years. And then, long story short, I was an intern at Sinai Temple, leading some of their young professional high holiday services. I was at Kahila Marav. I was doing like once a month there. Worship of our temple, I was doing once a month, all of these services. And I felt the call and I felt the pull, but I knew there was so much more. And so I found AJRCA. I was referred to Academy for Jewish Religion, California, which is the seminary where I ultimately graduated from. And it was it's a seminary that allows you to be a part-time student. So you can have a full-time career and go to school and accomplish your dreams of becoming a clergy person, Rabbi, Cantor, chaplain. And a lot of people are second career there. So I was like, okay, I'm a lawyer. I'm a cantor soloist, very, very part-time. Like I could take one class a semester. I'm going to do this. And after about 2 semesters, I was like, oh, it's going to take me 15 years to become a cantor. Like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
I was working as a lawyer. I was in school. I was like, this is not sustainable. And to the credit of my now husband, Lev, who at the time I was dating, he was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like you should become a cantor. It's so clear. It's what's in your heart. What are you waiting for? And like, that was kind of like looking straight in the eyes of somebody, who I trusted, who was like, what are you doing? It's like when you look in the mirror and you're like, what am I doing with myself? And that was a real holding up a mirror and saying like, you don't have forever. And what are you waiting for? And then the light bulb moment in my own. So that was an external influence. But then the internal moment was that I was at the law firm. We had one of the artists that we were representing. I was a music lawyer. One of the artists we were representing came to the office to perform. They did that periodically. And the lyrics that he sang, it went something like this. How long will you wait before you die to pack up your bags and fly?
Wow.
And I just started bawling in the middle of the law office. And I was like, all right, that's it. And that was it. It was like, full speed ahead. I started like surreptitiously applying to synagogues that were looking for full-time cantorial soloists, because obviously it was far from being ordained. And then this opportunity came. I tried a few different places, a few different interviews, and then the Shomrei Torah, now Hamakom opportunity came up. They took a chance on me. I took a chance on them. I left the law career behind me. And a very sweet little tidbit from that is that when I told my boss, basically the partner that I work for, when I told him that I was leaving, I was shaking. I was so nervous. I felt so guilty, all this Jewish guilt, inside. I'm like crying. I'm sorry. You've been such a great mentor for me. And I'm so sorry to leave, but I got this job as a, cantor, it's my passion. He was just like, he just paused for a minute and he looked me in the eye. He's like, I am so happy for you. And I just wish you all the best. And then they threw me a going away party and they got me a talit with music notes on it that I wear every high holidays.
Oh my gosh.
And that's my story.
Amazing. I also wonder how many of the lawyers there, because I know a lot of lawyers, and I used to be in entertainment as well. And I wonder how many of the lawyers there were like, I also want to follow my passion, but I now feel trapped in this, and they're going to wait until they retire to pack their bags and fly.
Oh, it's nice.
And so how amazing. And then somehow you met the incredible Herschel Fox.
Yes.
So Cantor Fox and Rabbi Schulweis worked together for, I don't know the math, but like 30 years. And they shaped my childhood in such incredible ways. What was it like to meet with this person? I mean, and Herschel, if you're listening, hello. He is more personality than should fit into one body.
I think I heard his wrist. Did you hear him? He said, hello.
That sounds about right.
Cantor Fox is one of my favorite people on earth, and I probably share the sentiment with so many others. Like the mensch of mensches, biggest heart in the world, and the most beautiful, colorful personality. And I see him as a teacher, a mentor. He's helped me with when I sing Yiddish songs. Yes, I feel like I've come to know Rabbi Schulweis through Cantor Fox's, through Herschel's amazing stories of him. I mean, we'd sit in clergy meeting and I'd be like, 30 seconds. And then he would tell us like a 5-minute story.
An hour later, you're like, Yeah, I used to sit in those clergy meetings, and and we'd try to like stay on topic, and then he tells a story. You can't stop, not because you don't want to be rude to him. You can't stop because it's the best story you've ever
Yeah.
heard.
It's so engrossing. It's so true. So
um,
true.
and what a legacy to have. I don't even know before him, Cantor Fortis,
Mm-hmm.
but Herschel Fox and Phil Barron, who,
Yes.
and I love how different you all three are. So it doesn't feel like they're replacing somebody. It's like adding somebody new to this choir of voices.
Mm. Mm.
You've now read Schulweis. You come
Mm-hmm.
in to this job, and this man who has been gone for a number of years looms very large in those hovels.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you read his poetry. Thank you, Marcy Rainey. At some point, you learn a little bit of predicate theology, that
Mm-hmm.
what we do in this world is godly. God does not heal the sick. God does not feed the hungry. You are God's partner, and you feed the hungry and heal this. All these things, and when you do that, you are bringing God into the world. How do you take that and bring it to the bima, or bring it off the bima? How do you take his theology and bring it to life?
I mean, it is the most relatable theology that I've read, and I feel that I think I was listening to the interview between Rabbi Feinstein and Rabbi Schulweis on predicate theology, and so good. And Rabbi Schulweis said, the majority of Jews don't believe in God. They just don't believe in that transcendent vertical God. That's how we refer to God, the vertical God. And Rabbi Schulweis wanted to horizontalize God. That's what he said. I thought that was so brilliant. Horizontalize God, so to be seen as a partner. I think that speaks to the modern Jew. It speaks certainly, I would think, to many, many, many of the multi-generations of Jews at Valley Beth Shalom Synagogue. And I think one, bringing God into a community, like how do you bring God into a community? Via godliness, via people, and via the things that we do. I actually see a really strong connection between this and the Chavara movement also that Rabbi Schulweis created, and the para-rabbinic movement that Rabbi Schulweis created. Basically, he's bringing godliness into community by creating the very things, like, if God is the one who gathers Jews together, then let's gather together and let's bring that godliness within us. And so this Chavara movement, that's groundbreaking Chavara movement that Rabbi Schulweis created, it was so impactful, and it was definitely an inspiration for. I created something in the last 2 years called Bina, which is a woman's modern spirituality circle. And it is these cohorts of women that meet, 7 to 10 women that meet monthly, and that have a spiritual practice together. And I really see that as bringing godliness to our community, as taking away this like distant vertical thing between congregant and synagogue, congregant and clergy, congregant and spirituality, congregant and God. Like, it's making this vertical, distant, cold thing horizontal. Now we're all together. We're all, connection, and there's lots of chesed within these groups. I mean, I see it as a very practical form of faith and practice, and I see it as something extremely relatable.
And I'm glad that you see this as part of your calling. So many cantors are very happy to be on the bima and to lead service and to get people to sing with them. And what it sounds like to have a room full of people, high holidays singing, 1,000 people singing whatever, Osei Shalom or Shema or Aleinu or something, and to take theology, to take Judaism off the bima as the cantor and to go out into the world, to make it come alive is so much. I'm inspired by the way that you follow your calling, that you have these Hineni moments, that you hear God calling out to you, Ayeka, where are you? And you show up. That's wonderful. I do. But is there a text that you're studying? Is there for some people it's a piece of Talmud, for some people it's just the Parsha, for some people it's a prayer that they're trying to wrap their head around. Is there anything that is currently on your desk or calling out to you going, that you're looking at?
Yeah, there is. So I just read, we just read Parshat B'Shalach for Shabbat Shira.
Yeah.
And I was studying, so I chanted the Maftir and the Haftarah, because Yossi Dresner, God bless him, also a legend, here at VBS, he asked me to chant. You don't say no to Yossi.
Right.
And so I've been, and also we had a Cantor's concert last week at VBS, a Broadway and Disney show, which was awesome, lots of fun. And one of the songs that I performed with the youth choir was When You Believe from The Prince of Egypt, which is like, Disney and Broadway adjacent. And it has the Micha Mocha text in it.
Right.
So Micha Mocha is a text that has been in my heart for like almost a decade. I've composed a Sephardic Persian melody for Micha Mocha. I added a Farsi translation that my mom translated of the Hebrew. That, I've been studying the text because, and I've been studying that, and that in conjunction with this chanting. I didn't chant Micha Mocha. I didn't chant Shirat Hayam. I chanted the Maftir and I chanted the Haftarah. And the Haftarah is about Yael, killing Sisera, and it's about Devorah and Barak, and Devorah, a mother in Israel with her beautiful voice. And so, thinking about Miriam and her beautiful voice, Micha Mocha, thinking of Devorah, arise, Devorah, and like the strength of these women. So it's a question I always think about, but it seems to be front and center right now. Like, again, we go back to the muted inner voice, like discover the hidden inner voice, the muted inner voice. I'm just thinking about what it means to raise your voice, to have your voice be heard, lifting the voices of women in our tradition. What must it have been like to be a woman in ancient Israel? And what does it mean to write a song? If Devorah's song really was the song that we chanted in the Haftarah, if Miriam really had a say, literally and figuratively, in composing this beautiful liturgy, I find myself really inspired by those moments, and I just want to know more, and I want to dive into that more. So those are the texts I'm sitting with. I don't really have a conclusion to those texts, but that's how they're sitting with me.
Yeah, I mean, I love in Judaism, we don't need the conclusion of that text. We can keep studying it and come back to it in a year, and it's going to be different.
That's right.
It's something else is going to be inspired in you. You are a delight. I'm so glad we get to talk to you today. I can't wait to work with you at some point in the future.
Likewise.
Is there anything else that you want to cover, think about?
Well, would you like to hear the song in the silence? Would you like to hear me play it?
That would be amazing.
Okay.
What a great way to end.
There are prayers that no one can write for me, tears that no one can shed for me, judgments that no one can render for me, prayers, tears, judgments in the silence. discover the muted inner voice, and open the lips that have been sealed from praise. Adonai, Sefatei Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sefatei Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatoi Tiftach, Adonai Sefatoi Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. In the silence, in the silence, in the silence.
Thank you so much. Then I will we'll end with that, but I just want to thank you so much for having me. It's really a delight as well to talk to you. Thank you for hosting such an incredible series.
Sure.
For including
Thank you very much, Cantor Jackie Rafii. Thank you for all that you do and for keeping Rabbi Schulweis's legacy alive.
Oh,
See you soon.
my honor.
Thank you for listening to the Moral Courage podcast. We are produced by the Harold M. Schulweis Institute at Valley Beth Shalom, which supports these podcasts in addition to educational programs within Valley Beth Shalom, the Schulweis Library, changing exhibitions at the Liner Chapel at VBS, Jewish World Watch, and the Jewish Community Children's Choir. The Moral Courage podcast is hosted by Rabbi Ari Averbach. Our consulting producer is Esther Kostanowitz. Our technical producer is Eric Weiser. We are grateful for the support of the Institute and Haley Lazitsky-Weiser at Sadcon Productions. To learn more about Rabbi Schulweis or to make a donation to help support these podcasts, visit the Institute website at hmsi.info.